Something really scary has happened, and I didn't realize it was happening until just a few days ago. But I feel like a lot of people have become numb to the consequences of the migrant crisis. I'm hardly even fazed when I see a headline about another rape or attempted murder by a refugee anymore. We've gotten bored of what used to be front page news a year ago. The media is tired, people are used to it, and it's hardly reported on anymore. There are literally thousands of migrant crimes every week, but the only time they grace our timelines is when it impacts a politician, a celebrity, or kills more than a few people. So popular media and trending lists have shoved it to the back burner, out of sight and out of mind. But I don't want this to be old news. I don't want this to become the new normal. I think we need to be reminded every single day of the crimes committed by Angela Merkel and the globalist politicians that opened the floodgates, and of how Europe is suffering because of it. So, as a reminder, let us talk about this week in refugees. We started our week with the heartbreaking story of Maria Ladenberger, daughter of an EU official who was raped and killed by an Afghan refugee. This story actually did make it to the news, unlike others, because of her connections to government officials. What was insane about the Ladenberger case is that after this horrible incident, at her funeral, her parents were collecting money for refugees. Now, that may sound noble, it may sound beautiful and forgiving, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Because all funding more refugees will do is bring more of them into the welfare state, sucking the country dry and committing more crimes against Europeans. The refugee who killed their daughter was likely supported and funded by the government, and funding more could potentially lead to more awful incidents like this. And speaking of governments funding refugees, a big thing that has been happening to stop complaints from people on both ends of the political spectrum is instead of fully supporting all the migrants or fully kicking them all out, governments are giving preference to certain ones, like children. Something that would normally make people go, "Aw," if these children weren't actually just grown men with beards that decided to put on some hoodies and take up finger painting. Just a few days ago, it was reported that the Danish government revealed about 600 of their underage asylum seekers were adults, according to medical tests. And there are hundreds more that the government suspect are lying about their age. I cannot fathom how people needed DNA tests to detect this when the child refugee situation became a laughingstock due to the mass amount of beards early on. I just wish that people could take a DNA test to tell them that these individuals are also lying about being refugees in general. But you know what? Sure, maybe not all of them are lying. Not every single migrant coming over is a 30-year-old in a Mickey Mouse t-shirt. No, you've got these 5 strapping teenagers from Afghanistan that have been charged with sexually assaulting a 15-year-old boy in the woods for over an hour at knife point in Sweden. The 15 and 16-year-olds then told the boy that if he spoke up, they would release a pornographic video they took of him to the world. It was also claimed that the boy was beaten, spat on, and bitten. Violence is not an uncommon thing with young migrant men in schools across Europe who have not assimilated to the culture and are already being introduced to ethnic and cultural enclaves across the continent. Unfortunately, these are just a few of many stories that have come out this week. But let's move on to the issue of terrorism. One of the greatest fears many have regarding this migrant crisis, and according to the migrants' track record, a pretty reasonable one. The Daily Mail just reported on December 9th that 2 boys aged 15 and 17 have been arrested on suspicion of plotting an Islamic terror attack involving a bomb or shooting in Germany. And along with their smartphones being seized, Islamist propaganda and ISIS flags were also taken by the anti-terrorist police. Another terrorist plot was foiled this week as Dutch police announced the arrest of a man preparing a terror attack on Rotterdam on Wednesday. He was in possession of an AK-47 rifle, 2 magazines, as well as 4 boxes of explosives. Among with these things, they confiscated his Islamic State battle flag and a number of mobile phones and 1,600 euros. Despite all this, things seem pretty okay right now in Europe, seeing as we're past the freaking awful summer we had during the Ramadan bombathon. But sometimes we need to stop and think about the fact that maybe it's just been a good couple of months for our anti-terror team and not a good couple of months for the migrants. The reality is that there are attempted terrorist attacks constantly. Unfortunately, these weren't the only thwarted attacks that were reported on this week. On December 6th, Breitbart reported that another migrant, this time Syrian, had been arrested and charged for having links to the Islamic State and for plotting a terror attack. The 16-year-old migrant was from Cologne and was arrested in September, but the story is just finally making Western headlines. Luckily, he has now officially been charged with preparing serious violence. As police said, he has actively plotted to build an explosive device. Imagine what it would look like if all these attacks weren't being thwarted every week. When I was in Germany, just outside Cologne station, they had 6 police vans parked and a portable assault office so you could go and report there, open all day from first thing in the morning. That is the reality that is Europe now, and it's not being properly reported on because people are numb to it, bored of it, or it doesn't suit their political agenda. If you want to keep up with the crimes going on every day there, I definitely suggest following the work of Chris Tomlinson and Oliver Lane at Breitbart, and The Rebel as well, of course. Unfortunately, there are only a few people brave enough to report on this issue, while the rest of Europe are busy reporting on whether you should be making your dogs wear sweaters or not, or whether air conditioning is sexist. Europe is fighting amongst itself for the survival or death of the European Union and the future of their continent and the West. Now is certainly not the time to forget the consequences of the EU and globalist leaders' actions. If you enjoyed that video, then make sure to subscribe and like this video.